big thanks and hello to Ammar Mirza, who holds senior positions in a number of organisations that are focused on helping businesses achieve growth, regionally, nationally and internationally. Ammar is currently Chair of the Institute of Directors North East North Region, Chair of the North East LEP Business Growth Board, board member at the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic Business Owners, as well as founder and chair of Asian Business Connections. Ammar has also hosted a weekly Friday show on Tyneside's very own radio station, Spice FM, for over 10 years now. He's certainly a very busy business professional and fully invested in helping organisations and individuals develop and achieve growth. So, welcome Ammar, thanks so much for joining me today. Should we start from the beginning? How did your business career begin? How did you start your career within helping businesses and within the business community?
Absolutely, and thank you for inviting me along, Steve. Delighted to be here on this program of yours, which is very well established, and looking forward to having this sort of conversation. My career probably started at a very early age. My late parents were both academics and entrepreneurs, and due to a variety of factors, my late mother ended up responsible for 6 of us and bringing us up. So I started working when I was around about 10 on a weekend in a shop, and it was a really useful experience. And I remember being paid a few pounds and bringing those few pounds home and giving it to my mother to contribute to the household. And ever since then, Steve, I've really not looked back. Enterprise. My late mother was an incredible entrepreneur, and it was in the blood. So I almost feel there is an aspect of that nature-nurture type of thing, and specifically trials and tribulations, how they can help inform you and what you do. So, gosh, we lived in abject poverty early on in life, and as a consequence of that, I decided at a very early age I didn't want to be poor, or certainly didn't want to have to worry about whether there was enough food on the table, or whether there was, I was sharing clothes with siblings or whatever that was. Started working early on.
Fantastic. No, it's great to hear that you're inspired so much by your family, your mother, your upbringing. Brilliant. And at what point did you develop that sort of interest in business and those motivations you had towards helping others? It's natural, the likes of the LEP, the IOD, a number of the organisations you're involved with at senior level are principally, their objective is to sort of help other businesses develop. And I know that you give up a lot of time yourself personally towards that goal.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. It's a great question. So I probably, like lots of other people, I was born and brought up here in the Northeast, and after finishing my education, decided to shoot off down to London, get down to the big smoke, and worked for the civil services, the British Council, at Spring Gardens, and then had an evening job, and really that's where my career started. But I always noticed and noted that my mum and my late father were really community-driven individuals, and supported lots of community sort of activities, particularly within the Asian community. And at that time, it wasn't something that I was particularly interested in. I just wanted a career. I just wanted to learn. And I then became a parent relatively early on, and decided, I needed to knuckle down and find my career. So I worked for about 10 years for a large corporate traveling the UK, had offices pretty much in every major city or region. And because of that, I couldn't really give that time away. So in around 2003, I came back to the Northeast and settled down. And it was round about then, Steve, that I thought, right, I have a bit more time. I want to get involved. As I mentioned, my late mother give away a lot of her time helping other females and Asian women, and late father established the mosque and was the general secretary of the mosque, the largest mosque in the Northeast at the time, in Elzig, and developed a range of community programs. So 2003, my career brought me back here. I started getting involved in property development, and wanted to give back some of that to the community. So I became a governor of a school in Walker, and got involved in local strategic partnerships with the local authority. And then it's just sort of almost spiraled from there. I couldn't really afford to give away my time, but equally, what I didn't want to do was get to a stage where lots of other people are retired, and then decide to give up their time. I wanted to both add value and get value from those experiences. So give away probably at times 2/3 of my working week and life, and I've done so shy of a couple of decades now, Steve.
Yeah, fantastic. No, it's obviously highly commendable that you invest so much time to help others, essentially. And interesting, again, listening to what you're saying there around potentially the inspiration that your mother's given you, again, reference there around sort of her part in the community, that important role that she had with the mosque and so forth. And, you know, you naturally, as I mentioned in the introduction, Asian business connections, about sort of connecting in different community groups together to work in a business sense, I guess, effectively. So I can see that, you know, there's alignment there, I suppose, between bringing together different communities. Also, you mentioned the school there. I think one thing that shines through in reading through your background is, you know, that PI project, is it? And then also you've got another element of education that you're involved with the university, around the visiting professor status you have. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my late parents were teachers, although mum was forced to work. So she worked 18-hour days on a sewing machine, bringing us up, providing as much as she could. So I've always had a sort of an interest in education and the importance of education. And it's quite interesting, you know, as young people, as children and young people, when your parents are stood there going, get to school, you know, make the most of your education, it's the most important thing, and you're sort of stood there or sat there going, what do you know? You know, and clearly it's when you get to an age of being a parent and you go, oh, education's the most important thing. So not being an academic, but being a practitioner in enterprise and having significant experience. When I joined Timeview Primary School as a governor, what I wanted to do was apply my experience, expertise to supporting future generations. So the thing that I know is business and leadership and innovation. So I then, working in concert with the school, the head teacher, started working on an enterprise program for young people. That developed, and in 2013, we launched the Primary Inspiration Through Enterprise PI project, which brought real enterprise experiences, not realistic, but real enterprise experiences into schools. And using local entrepreneurs. So it wasn't about the Alan Sugars or the Richard Bransons flying in and going, wow, look at me, and the kids going, oh, this is amazing, but not relating to them. It was using local business people. So Mr. Singh from the corner shop, Sally the solicitor, Ed the engineer, people that these young primary age children would see on a day-to-day basis, and bringing them into the school to deliver an enterprise challenge. So we'd give the school £100 seed money, provide them with a business plan, and help support them through that business journey to either make a product, buy a product, really bringing to life innovation, STEM, and creativity. And they would then sell a product, and they were purely judged on profit. So, that the charity's grown. At the beginning of the charity, when we established it, I donated a shop to 4 schools. So I had a shop in Walker, and 4 schools came together to run that shop, which was an incredible experience. As in it was, really, really interesting to get the schools and the school leaders out of their comfort zones. But they had a great experience, and it helped inform the charity. And then I continued that enterprise education journey, and in 2015 I was asked to become the David Goldman Visiting Professor of Innovation and Enterprise at Newcastle University's Business School. It was one of the most scariest things I've ever done, Steve. As in the people prior to me sort of had facilitated world peace or created innovative type of medicines, and cured the world for all of these things. And then here was little old me. I was the first ethnic person. I was the first Asian, to be invited, and I was probably one of the youngest to be considered for this prestigious role. So that was quite interesting, and it was a great experience. And I've continued to support the university and the business school, bringing practical lived experiences and expertise to underpin the theoretical approach that they have in learning and development.
Fantastic. No, it's great. And, what an achievement to be asked to do that. And what an achievement to set up the shop as well. I mean, that's a great idea that you implemented there with the school children, and for many reasons, really. But, that practical experience this must have gained through that real life sort of being involved in the basics of running a shop was, a fantastic offer from you to do that.
Well, it's just really interesting, Steve. Sorry, it's really, really interesting just to elaborate on that point a little bit, because having grown up in the Northeast in abject poverty and not being able to afford the things that other families and children would take for granted, Christmas time, our highlight was the radio time, so we could see what was on television. We didn't get any presents. Once a month we'd be afforded Jammy Dodgers biscuits. That was like a major treat for us. People have constantly and consistently suggested that money is bad and making money is bad, and that it's not about money. Now, it's not all about money, and they're absolutely right. But you tend to find that those individuals that stand on a stage or at the front of a classroom or wherever it is and advocate that it's not about money, or it shouldn't be about money, they're probably very comfortable in their position and they don't need money. But everybody needs money in some guise, because it gives them options. If as a single parent in Walker or Benwell or wherever it is in the Northeast, and you have a choice of, do I feed children or do I put the electricity on? It's a stark choice to make. And a young person understanding enterprise, and applying it on a consistent basis to ensure they have options and to create income streams, is a great toolkit, and it's a great skill development. So arguably, the key thing that we can help sort of future generations, and indeed their parents and their carers and all of the key stakeholders, is help them to be able to become self-sufficient. As that age-old saying of, give someone a fish and they'll feed themselves for a day, teach them how to fish and they'll feed themselves forever type thing. And it's the same principle, Steve, that I advocate. And even now I encourage schools, stakeholders, business leaders to come in and share those critical experiences of, this is how you can survive and thrive through making money, which gives you options.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I think as well, listen to what you're saying there, it's the inspiration for the young people as well. And I don't want to go too off topic, because I think we could have a separate podcast on this. But, I think there's lots of research out there that suggests that, that their young people's upbringing, who they're inspired by, who they're supported by, who they're, what they're told and what they learn, essentially does influence what the direction of travel that they end up having within an adult life. And if they can be inspired commercially in principle, even via simple mechanics, such as being able to operate a shop and seeing what money means and understanding money a little bit more, absolutely, and they become engaged in, well, I could do this and I could do it whilst I work, kind of thing. Brilliant. You'll know that my wife is involved with young people, helps young people develop as part of her charity, and actually there's some alignment listening to what you're saying around the sort of family thing for me as well. Like my mum and dad are both from sort of London, East End, South London, between them, so had similar sort of working class upbringing. And my mum she was a teacher, and she's retired now, but she always taught in inner city Manchester. So whilst they'd worked hard, I'm lucky that I was sort of certain upbringing that wasn't, in poverty, lucky for me, I suppose. But I also had access to that, through my mum. I used to go and help her in the schools and my holidays and so forth when we had sort of that opportunity. And I certainly heard all the stories and actually, without going into too much detail, engaged in with a lot of people that were based in those schools through my footballing career and upbringing when I was a teenager. So yeah, I had that sort of touch point and, that sort of inspiration of what it means to help against that type of challenge. So yeah, it's a really interesting topic area. APPG, I'm particularly interested in this as well. So tell me a bit about this. You're involved in the all-party parliamentary group for Black, Asian and minority ethnic business owners. And that's been for the past couple of years, has it?
It has, yeah.
How did you get involved?
I was asked to, is what it was. But actually, Steve, it links to the conversation we've just been having there around influences and barriers and enablers to people realizing their ambition and aspiration. So just to stitch that point into this one together. But the young people, children and young people, well, children in particular, make life-limiting choices and decisions when they're 7 or 8. So whether they decide they can or cannot do something is formulated at that point. So demonstrating, connecting role models and addressing some of those barriers and such like. And now, when I talk about making money, it's not just purely about making money, it's about enterprising, right? So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to encourage young people to become more enterprising, realizing their ambitions and raising their aspirations. And my own experiences, I came from a fractured family. So I've mentioned the abject poverty. I was Asian. I didn't fit in. I've had to work 2, 3, 4, 5 times as hard as other people. And despite all of those barriers, challenges, abuse, all of those things, I've persevered, and I've adopted a positive mindset, and wanting to constantly and consistently help inform activities, programs, and initiatives and interventions based on lived experience. So how might we make sure it doesn't happen to other people, as an example? And in 2009, I established Asian Business Connections, which was a not-for-profit social enterprise, which grew to become the foremost representative body for Asian businesses. But it was always established in an inclusive approach. So whilst we targeted and prioritized Asian communities, our delivery development of programs has been specific to local communities across the whole of the Northeast. And then a couple of years ago, I was asked by Chi Unwuru, the MP, who was the chair of this all parliamentary party group, to get involved and attend an event, and then that sort of spiraled from there. The APPG, it is just purely an advisory body. It has no political stay or say in the business of Parliament. However, is used as a advisory board of stakeholders from across the Black, Asian, minority, ethnic business community. And over the last sort of 12 months specifically, we've undertaken quite a lot of research on the impact of COVID, the barriers, the enablers, and just general research on BAME communities. And it's been a really useful experience and meaningful engagement that has led to some changes taking place around inclusion and diversity at national policy level, as well as influencing local strategy as well.
Fantastic. And if you're able to share because I guess we've talked quite a bit about the background, and obviously we've only got a short period of time today, but if we move through to like the last 12 months, just picking up on your sort of research point there, are you able to share any sort of top line sort of findings or anything that, because I guess, someone who's in business, advising businesses, helping businesses, and all the background you've been through today, naturally in those types of positions, an understatement, but businesses have been affected, right? In various different ways, some certainly negative, others less so, over the past 15 months since the pandemic hit. How has your research sort of fed into that? Has it thrown up any sort of outputs yet that you're able to share or that you mentioned there?
So great, an interesting question. Business growth, as defined, is primarily predicated on 3 key or critical growth enablers: innovation, internationalization or new markets, and digital transformation, Steve. So digitally transformed businesses were 25% more profitable than those that weren't. This was pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. Now, if you aren't digitally enabled, the likelihood is you don't have a future. Other things that we've seen at the start of the pandemic, we at the SME Centre of Excellence launched the Save Our SME campaign. And part of that approach was recognising that an SME has three choices. That's either innovate your business model, look at how you deliver your goods or services, hibernate, which was shut your doors, shut her up, and see how long you can go, or liquidate. And that was recognizing that you don't have a future, don't flog that dead horse, and sort of close to reopen for another day. And it was really, really interesting because we had over 300 service providers, solicitors, accountants, a whole host of experts providing pro bono advice and support to SMEs. And then we carried out a review a couple of months back on what type of things and changes have we seen. So there's really interesting terms that people have used, and you're an expert on marketing and marketing strategy, Steve. So you get behaviors, people, how organizations have adopted and adapted. Now, from me being a business model innovation expert and a business growth expert, it's those same principles, right? Know your customer, be clear on the value proposition that you have, define it. So be clear on the jobs that an individual or your customer is trying to do. What type of pain are they experiencing? What type of gain are they looking for? And then, having identified that clearly and concisely, be clear on your value proposition and the pain relievers that your product or service can create, and the gain creators. So, value is all key, and the most successful businesses, if you pick up Amazon, it's all about convenience. That's their business model, and they've clearly identified how to continuously offer that value. Netflix, it's once again, they're clear on their customer segment, the value proposition that they offer, and how they deliver it. So that business model mapping exercise is key, and innovation is all around making that journey, that experience better, is what it is. So, my key or core advice to any business is look at your business model, look at how you deliver value. So how do you create, capture, and deliver value, and where can you improve it? Research-wise, I think it's still early days. It's literally doing a bit of this and that. Biggest challenge right now for industry is skills and the shortage of skills, which is quite interesting, because on the opposite side of that, we're seeing an increase in low-level, low-skilled unemployment, and in particular, the BAME community and women have been far more impacted than the broader, wider communities that exist through COVID, whether it's jobs, whether it's opportunities, whether it's the impact and influence of all of the challenges and such like. So it's very, very interesting. But there's real opportunities out there for growing businesses. And a business should be clear on their value and how they're going to deliver it, and constantly reviewing and revising and connecting with their customers and engaging with their customers.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. I mean, thanks for the detailed overview. Really, really interesting. I think acceleration of change is, widely recognised as being significant. Quite a bit of narrative out there around, changes that may have happened anyway, but have just been sort of accelerated through due to COVID, particularly with regards to digital transformation, if we term it that. And I absolutely agree that, businesses that were perhaps not that digitally enabled prior to the pandemic starting have sort of been forced into that position, both from an operational perspective, how they do business virtually and operate, through to how they interact with customers and what their offering is, as you say. We talked a lot, haven't we, before, through our work that we do together, and there's a lot of discussion around more and better jobs, which is the objective, and skills linked to that. I think what's a particularly interesting dynamic within skills and supply and demand is the increase in remote working, and whether that enables a completely different landscape, certainly for particular disciplines. And, do you think regionally, okay, what do we offer as a region from skills, particularly things like digital skills, tech, people that live here and have those skill sets, they don't necessarily need to work for companies in the region moving forward, if they can be employed by companies elsewhere and have a remote type role that doesn't require the travel. And I think that's a trend that will definitely come through over the forthcoming years. I think we'll see, will hopefully anyway, see a bit more agility and flexibility in where people can be located and who they can work for, essentially, which really opens up the whole sort of supply and demand on a regional level of skills that aren't available, essentially. So just to round off, Ammar, I appreciate, we're coming sort of the end of our talk, just touching on the last 12 months. Have you got any views as to, quite a broad question, but I suppose hone in on the region, what considerations we may have sort of moving forward as we look to the future, either sort of within the work that you're involved in, or, what particular focus you personally may have over the next 12 months or so? I appreciate it's difficult to predict anything at the minute with, we're still coming out of this period very much, and things are settling down and restrictions are being hopefully continue to be released. If you got any views on, from a business perspective, any advice around business growth or sort of trends that we might expect over the next?
Yeah, and great question, Steve. I wish I had a crystal ball, but innovation, right, is key. It's been accelerated, whether it's been in health, life science, vaccines, you name it. We've seen innovation developed and deployed at such pace and at such scale that it's created seismic shifts in behaviors, in people, in place, in programs, and we're going to continue to see that. So accepted and adopted. Some of the challenges, so what COVID has done, it's shined a light on some of the barriers and the disparity in communities and individuals and such like, which hopefully are going to be resolved. As a business, the things that we need and must consider now is sustainability and inclusion. People from across the board are now looking at how can we create a more sustainable, greener, cleaner offer, and how can we make sure that we include all members of the community equally and meaningfully. So have a look at those areas. But for me, the single biggest driver and the single biggest opportunity right now is innovation. So have a look at your business model. How do you innovate that? And we've got lots of resources and lots of support to offer. So if anyone's would like to reach out, then please do. But I equally, as I say, Steve, really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We could naturally be sat here for months, never mind hours, talking about the different types of interests we have.
Yeah, brilliant. And on that note, Ammar, I'd just like to say a huge thanks, and that brings us to the end of our session. And I'd love to invite you back on, and maybe we can explore some more of those points in the future. But, thanks again, and
thank you.
Speak to you soon. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.